Hi everyone, welcome. This is Eric Grodebois coming at you from EPGD, Attorneys at Law PA here in Coral Gables, Florida. Sunny Coral Gables, Florida. I think the first chill has come through the air, so I'm looking forward to the winter and the fall. EPGD land, and this is our first recording anyways since before the hurricane. So I hope all of you and your family were okay. And actually the point of this blog post is to help you guys, and it's a general reminder because even though the hurricane missed us, there's still going to be a lot of opportunities for fraud, for scams, and frankly for getting it in writing. So that's the purpose of today's blog post. Get it in writing. So let me tell a story that has nothing to do with the hurricane. A client of mine calls me up and he says, hey, listen, I just noticed a big hit on my credit score. And I said, a big hit on your credit score? He goes, yeah, my credit went from something in the 700s to something in the 600s, like overnight. And I said, what happened? He goes, well, I also got a demand letter in the mail from this debt collection law firm in Arizona, and just to be clear, we're in Florida, so from somewhere else, and they're saying that I owe $1,800 for the health insurance from my old employer. I'm like, this sounds really crazy, tell me more. And he goes, well, what they're alleging is that I was bound by my employment contract to give at least 2 weeks notice if I quit my job, and that I didn't give 2 weeks notice. And that since he didn't give 2 weeks notice, they kept him on the insurance for longer than he would have been, and now they're sending him a bill to pay them back for the health insurance. Which, by the way, just as a point of saying, that's a really crappy thing for his old employer to do, and I think that that's a really nice way to burn the bridges and make sure you're never going to have a future relationship. And sometimes, I guess $1,800 is real money, but is it really worth maybe like poisoning a future relationship? I mean, the guy's only in his 30s. That means you could have a relationship for the next 40 years. So anyways, and I say, well, did you give your boss 2 weeks notice? And he goes, yeah, I did, but here's the rub. I did it in writing on the email account for my old job, which I no longer have access to. So he's arguing with the debt collector on the phone, himself, by the way, he hasn't gotten a lawyer involved yet, and he says, and the debt collector says, well, it's your burden to prove it. And all of a sudden it dawned on me, I'm like, you know what? When he was quitting that job, he probably should have just copied his personal email account so that even though it was from his work email to his boss's work email, there would have been a paper trail. So he could go into his personal email account and say, here you are, debt collection jerk. Here's proof that I gave my 2 weeks notice. The end of the story is he called his old boss. His old boss is like, yeah, let me look in your old emails. They found the proof. It turned out to be a big misunderstanding. But here's the point. You need to get things in writing. Now, I have a policy here in my firm that whenever you have a phone call or a meeting, you need to follow it up with an email to the client or to whoever it is that you talk to that says, hey, Bob, it was great talking to you on the phone. Here's what we talked about. Here's what we agreed upon, and here are the next steps. And you should do that if it's the opposing counsel, if it's just somebody that you're talking to, anytime something substantive happens. Because I got to tell you, I don't remember conversations I had last week, much less 2 years ago, much less to 20 years ago, all right? So the point of the matter is you need things to be in writing. Now, where does that take us to the hurricane? So after a hurricane, especially one that wasn't catastrophic, but a lot of people had minor damage. So the state of Florida has just lifted restrictions on general contractors becoming roofers because there was so much roof damage all over Florida, which means that everybody with a pickup truck is driving around looking for business, and they're going to be fixing people's houses, their fences, their gardening, their landscaping, their trees, their roofs, their windows, whatever it is. And so all these people are going to be negotiating contracts. Now, most of these contracts, unfortunately, are going to be oral. I want you to fix my fence. How much are you going to charge me? I'll charge you $1,000. Okay, here's $1,000. Now, thank goodness, most of the time, you make a deal, the other person's going to do what they say they're going to do, and then we're done. And by the way, oral contracts are completely enforceable in the state of Florida. But the point is that every once in a while, and for us lawyers, enough of the time to make it so that we can all make a living, people will screw each other over. All right? So here's my advice to you out there. Don't do oral contracts. Even if you do an oral contract, send a text message, send an email, say, hey, this is what we agreed upon. On this day, you came to my house. I gave you $1,000 in exchange for you fixing my fence. You said you'd have it done in 10 days. This is to confirm our conversation. Now, it's not as good as a signed, notarized, witnessed contract. It's not as good as going to a lawyer and having something formal put in place. And I'll tell you, just in the last few seconds I have for this 5 minutes with Eric, the reason we do written contracts is twofold. Number one, It's in writing. There's no misunderstanding. It's not, hey, you promised me this. No, I didn't, because it's in writing. Now, at the very least, if you have that email exchange, you can point to the email exchange and say, hey, I sent you an email and you never objected, or better yet, you responded, yes, I agree. That's the makings of a contract. But the main reason we have contracts is because we have a magical thing called an attorney's fee provision, which means that if I give you $1,000 and you screw me over and don't fix my fence, I'm going to call my lawyer, we're going to sue you, and you might be like, wow, you're going to sue someone for $1,000? You're like, yeah, I am, because I don't know where you come from, but where I come from, $1,000 is a lot of money, and after I'm done beating you, I'm going to get an attorney's fee award from the judge, which all of a sudden makes the $1,000 I'm chasing a lot easier to chase after. So for all of you out in EPGD land, get it in writing and follow up everything you do with an email at the very least, or better yet, call me and let's make a real contract.